Hope everybody's having a blessed day. So, whatever we consume repeatedly, we become. And so, our body is like a computer. And so, whatever the inputs into the computer, it remembers, it stores as a memory. And so, much like our body, we input different things, it becomes these. And so, what am I talking about here? So, I'm talking about all the inputs. I'm talking about music, I'm talking about food, I'm talking about programming, I'm talking about beliefs, I'm talking about TV, movie shows, I'm talking about anything you repeatedly consume, you will ultimately become. And there's no way to escape this. So, case in point, my life. So, I was told in the society that I grew up, I had to grow up, go to university, get a job, get a wife, have some kids. And so during that programming, which was repeatedly fed to me over and over for the first 18 years of my life, and so I went to university, became a mechanical engineer, and ultimately I got a job. Then I got a girlfriend. And so ultimately I became those ideas and beliefs that I consumed. And so that's why ideas and people and environments are so important, because we become like our environments and the people that are there. You know, there's a law called the Law of Seven, and it states that we are the average of the 7 people that we spend the most time with. And so those inputs of exchanging ideas with those people, we become an average of those people. So if you don't like the people and where their lives are at and what's going on, you're ultimately going to become an average of them. And so we become those things. And this isn't just something that has no backing to this. Because every person that I've ever talked to that has always been unhappy in some manner has inputs that are negative. And so when you realize this, what we put in to our body, whether it's in through our ears, the sound, food through our mouth, or anything, we ultimately become those things. And so it's super important that we surround ourselves in an environment that's conducive to who we want to be and become. Because if we're surrounding ourselves in an environment, we're not going to be able to step into our own power. We're not going to be able to do what we want, because it'll be close to impossible. You want to go one way, but your environment's pulling you a different way. And so when you realize that, there's things that you do that pull you in the opposite direction. And when you're trying to get to a new place, you're going to have to let go of those ideas and programming. Because just like I became a mechanical engineer, I realized it wasn't for me. I realized deep down, this is not who I am. Because I was following those external inputs and guidance that weren't even mine. And so the biggest thing, the most important thing, is ideas and beliefs, because those have the biggest ability to shape our lives. And so I had to let go of that belief, and I had to consume new beliefs that I can become whoever I want to be. I had to repeatedly feed my mind and consume content that would reprogram who I was. And it would feed my mind in such a way that it was conducive to who I knew I could be. Not this idea of what we have to do or what we should do. And so slowly, as I started to consume these different things, it allowed me to move forward to making my dreams and what I knew was possible happen, because I was consuming something different. And so in order to get something different, we have to do something different. And that's the biggest thing. And so not only does this apply just to these ideas, and a big one of these is the music. Because what happens when we listen to music is our brain enters this alpha brainwave state, theta brainwave state, and those are states almost akin to hypnosis. The alpha one. The theta is more and more akin to hypnosis. And so when we listen to a song that's negative, and you see this with a lot of sad, love songs, like a breakup or whatever it may be. Somebody that's, singing about a lost friend, lost love, lost family member, anything that's sort of depressive in nature. When we listen to those tones and we listen to those words, those go straight into our subconscious mind. And so it becomes like a mantra. Because when you repeat a mantra to yourself, it's an affirmation. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what it's hearing and what's reality. And so if you're sitting, say you're sitting in your car, your room, or whatever, and you've been listening to that song that's saying, I miss my love, I'm nothing without that person, and you're singing to the chorus and you're humming that tune, and you have those words going through your mind all throughout the day, you're programming that into your body, into your subconscious mind. And so when you end up losing that person, it becomes much harder to overcome them, because you're repeating to yourself, it's an affirmation, a mantra, I'm nothing without that person. So it makes it much harder. So the music is a big, big thing, because whatever we're listening to, our subconscious mind is absorbing it. And so if you're listening to music that's disempowering, that is disempowering words, and it has disempowering frequencies, because there's good frequencies and there's bad frequencies. There's frequencies that are harmonic, and there's frequencies that aren't harmonic with our body and our nature. And you can notice this when you listen to something and you're just like, this gives me like the creeps, or I just feel weird listening to this. Because there's tones that aren't harmonious. And so one of these specifically is, our standard tuning, which is A440. That was changed, almost 90 to 100 years ago, because the standard tuning used to be 432. And so when you look at the patterns of these different vibrations, you see that the 432 tuning is more harmonic. And, you know, when you play those vibrations to a water droplet, you can see the molecular structure change if you freeze that. You know, there's a Japanese scientist, Emoto. He used to do these water experiments. And, you know, what he found was when he played different types of music that was unharmonious, it would cause a different effect. And so the patterns of the water would change based on the types of music and frequencies. And so like classical music was very harmonious, and when you would freeze that water droplet, it would show a beautiful pattern. But for example, if you played metal or something that was non-harmonious, like rock to some degree, it would show these patterns that are very disturbed and broken. And the thing to realize is, and why I'm all telling you about this, is because these frequencies, these vibrations are inputs. And so it's like, okay, Austin, what do these vibrations matter? Well, if you realize our body is nearly 75% water, and a frequency or a vibration from the music hits your body, it is altering the molecular structure of the water in your body. And the water is how your cells communicate. It's how your body operates. And so that's why it matters. And it makes a big, big difference, because it's programming our whole entire body, our cells, everything, subconscious mind. And so when we live from that space, it causes us to act different, because you feel this. When you listen to a sad song, you feel sad. When you listen to an upbeat song, you feel upbeat, motivated. And so this is something that's super important. And this is one of the second key aspects as well. And then I'll talk about the third key aspect, which is food. Because what we're eating, we become. And you've probably heard the saying, you are what you eat. And it's totally true. And so especially if you're eating a bunch of processed foods, artificial foods, that's going to change how your body operates, because the body isn't built to live off processed foods. And so your life becomes very artificial and processed, because your brain and your gut become hijacked by these foods that have chemicals in them. And then when the foods have chemicals in them, it hijacks the pleasure center of the brain. And we can easily become very addicted. And so, if anybody has an addiction, and I used to have addictions to sweets and sugary things, highly processed sugars, and I remember when I finally cut those out. You know, I still eat them every once in a while. But 5 years ago, I did a detox where I cut out sugars for 6 months. And the first month was incredibly hard. And it was almost like withdrawal symptoms. And it really is. Because our body craves that same sensation. And so, if we're eating something that is hijacking our reward center, our brain, then that affects how we operate. That's going to affect the type of things we do. Because if you notice, when you eat things that aren't good for you, processed, fried foods, all those different types of things, you feel lethargic. And so when you feel lethargic, it's because your body is having to process all that, digest it. And so if you feel lethargic, you're not going to have energy. If you don't have energy, you can't make things happen. You can't pursue your passion. You can't do that project. You can't make that dream happen. And so it's very important, the food that we consume, because it shapes our body and it shapes our mind. So we have to be very, very careful of what we're consuming. And so I really want you to take a look at who you're surrounding yourself around. Are these people beneficial to me? Are they constantly repeating things that isn't in resonance and where I want to be? And are these people's lives where I want to be? Because that energy, those beliefs, rub off on you. So I really want you to look at your core surrounding and see what the commonality is. What's the common belief? Because there's a good part, if you're wanting to jump into a new version of yourself, their beliefs are holding you back. That doesn't mean you have to cut ties with whoever it is. It just means you have to set a little bit of a distance. And so the second thing is the music. Is the music that you're listening to empowering or disempowering? Because people wonder why they feel sad and they're listening to sad music all day. So take a look at what you're listening, what's in your playlist. Because whatever you sing gets embedded in your subconscious and it reprograms your whole body. And the third thing is the food. What does your diet look like? Is it healthy, whole foods, or is it processed? Because the cleaner the fuel source that we run on, the better we'll operate. Because it's like trying to put diesel fuel into an electric car. It's not going to work very well. And so a lot of these processed foods our body can't even utilize because there's not any nutrients in them. And so we get slowed down by them because our body has to digest them, eliminate them from our body. So take a look at what you're eating. And is this conducive to where you want to go? And if not, we have to make some changes. Peace and love, everyone. I hope a miracle finds you this week.